Welcome to the IDP Plus podcast. We are going to do the Week 15 IDP standings. My guest tonight is Jeff Pomazal from the IDP Show. He does the weekly waiver article as well as the live sit-start show on Sunday mornings. We're going to apply and combine all our knowledge together, and we're going to give you guys a ranking show. How you doing, Jeff?
Fantastic, Steve. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Awesome. I'm glad you came on. Like I said, we got a lot to offer, and I really enjoy your show over there. You got a lot of smart people you work with. Such a joy to have different takes, different networks coming on the show, and that way we could apply these players, not just rankings, but what we think about them.
Yep. It's all about different perspective, and that's how you kind of grow. I mean, if you're just stuck on the hamster wheel doing the same thing, you're not going to progress anywhere. So, get a different take. Even if you don't agree with it, you can kind of take away something and learn from it. So
exactly. And I get kind of passionate with my takes as well. And I'm like, just because you're loud doesn't mean you're angry. You want to go at different ways and look at stuff. It's the only way we learn. It's the only way we learn stuff. Jeff, what we do over here at the IDP Plus is we go over the Fantasy Pros rankings each week. And just to let you know the scoring is solo tackles 1.5, assisted tackles 0.75, tackles for loss 2 points, sacks is 4, interceptions 5, forced fumbles 4, and so forth and so forth. I ask every audience, I ask everybody that I bring on the show, is there anything that stands out to you? Is there anything that pops?
No, I think this is really in line with the big three scoring that the IDP show uses too. Just it rewards those big plays, those big turnover plays, those big momentum changing plays. Just like in the real football game, a linebacker or a D lineman gets a sack. It's a huge play in the game on the field. So it should be rewarded as such in your scoring. So this aligns really well with, a lot of formats that we support and play in. So.
Heck yeah. I'm going to pull up the scoring. This is kind of the leader tournament that I'm playing in as far as accuracy goes. Jeff, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So this is week 14, what we just went through. If I was to show you guys the IDP currently right now, let me see here. Let me pull it up for you. I am second on the year. I'm second for week 14 in scoring. So I had a pretty strong week. Overall for the year, I'm currently ranked 4th, but it's like a 3-way race for second place. So 2, 3, 4, we're all kind of sort of close by a couple points.
There's a lot of legends on that list right there. So it's quite an honor. Congrats.
Hey, it's just, I'm lucky to be on the thing. And I couldn't tell you what I'm doing. I mean, we have a couple set, templates that I use, and I've set them in a couple videos, and like I said, I'm hoping to learn from each guest. I mean, that's the only way we get better,
And such a grind too. Every week you're putting in you really have to be on top of it with the IDP world, especially just because there's even tonight, Grant Delpit went on IR. All of a sudden, the trickle down effect that's going to have. It's not just the Cleveland defensive back position, but their linebackers, and all of a sudden their defensive backs aren't going to be able to cover the wide receivers and tight ends as long. And then all of a sudden, well, does that affect Myles Garrett? So it's not just a one position impact. It really trickles down to the entire defense. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. And just to give you a little touch base, and for the people on Spotify that can't see my screen, over at the IDP Guys Network, we have on the site, we have a snap count tool calculator. And we also have this neat thing too that does points by position. And what I'm showing the audience right now is I'm showing teams that are more liable to the sack per defensive end. And those teams are the Giants, Jets, Tennessee, Denver, Jacksonville, New England, followed by the Bears, Vikings, Carolina, Ravens, and the Commanders. It's just a good idea to know those teams. I don't know how you are, Jeff. I like to play matchups, especially when I'm going to my lower tiers.
Very much so. And I always like using those as a tiebreaker. If I have a decision between a couple guys, I always look at that matchup. All right, who's playing Sack Howell? I want to make sure I have a guy up against Washington. If I, the Giants have been a sieve for opposing defensive line. So if I have a close call between a couple of guys, especially during the bye weeks, you're kind of making those tough decisions on who to actually plug in your lineup. That's kind of my deal breaker is who am I gonna lean towards that week. So
exactly. And Jeff, You should have been on about a week ago. I was complaining about doing the waiver wire article over at Fantasy Six Pack on a Tuesday, and then coming over here on IDP Guys and trying to get my ranks together on Wednesday. I'm like, literally, the week goes so fast. But for the audience that doesn't know Jeff, he does the IDP Show waiver wire. And when do you put that out, Jeff?
I kind of finish it late Sunday night, so it gets published on Monday. So that way it's kind of a head start for some of those leagues that might be able to sneak in ahead of time. So
I want to say you're the earliest guy putting that stuff out. So when I think I have it bad, I look at Jeff.
I'm a glutton for punishment, so it just kind of goes with the territory. It's a labor of love.
If the audience is ever, curious and needs a question answered, you can find me over on IDP Hunter. You can find Jeff over there. We're usually up in the middle of the night trying to find our waiver guys, trying to set them up, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to get into the defensive lineman rankings. Again, no bye weeks anymore, so thank goodness. So some of these guys are our usual suspects. I say we go through some of the highlights, know some of the big ones. I'm going to start with the first three. I'm going to put them all together. Number 1 is Myles Garrett. Number 2 is Max Crosby. Number 3 is TJ Watt. When you look at Myles Garrett, one thing I do too, Jeff, I kind of put their stats and I relate it by position. Just gives me a better, honest feel of the player. Like if I told you the guy had, 22 tackles on the season, you'd be like, whoopie damn do. If I said he had 22 tackles as a cornerback, that may provide value, So when we look at Myles Garrett, he's tied for 15th for tackles with 59 solos. Assists, he's got 5, 64. So that's 64th. Where Myles Garrett is sensational is the sacks. He's 14th. He has 14th on the season, which ties him for 5th. And he's got 4 forced fumbles, which is tied for 2nd. With Myles Garrett, he's got a 94.3 pass rush rate. But forget about all that. For those people that are on Spotify that can't see my screen, I'm just going over some basic stats of Myles Garrett. The reason we got Myles Garrett number 1 this week is because he is playing the Bears, which is the 7th worst defensive end matchup, the best actually. So sign me up for some Myles Garrett this week.
Yeah, especially like in leagues too that reward for like pressures or hurries. Like Garrett has like 33 or 34 pressures or hurries on the season too. So if you're in a league that rewards that way too, even if he doesn't get home and get the sack, he still impacts the game in that way. So if you play in some really like some deep degenerate IDP leagues where they reward for stuff like that, he's even more amazing because the 15 sacks or 14 sacks that he have is great, but just how he impacts the game on a play-to-play basis is outstanding. So yeah, definitely he's a number 1. Him and Crosby are, coin flip every week. So,
and I've mentioned this in other episodes. I mean, the key is all, most defensive ends, if I get 60% or higher snap count, I'm excited. Both him and Crosby, they live on the field. I mean, they're generating high 80, 90% each week. And on that note, Max Crosby's my number 2. He's got 42 solo tackles. That's tied for 1st at his position. Assists, 19th. That's tied for 1st as well. Sacks, 14. That's tied for 5th. And forced fumbles, he's got 1, which is tied for 24th. Now, a little fun fact on Max Crosby, okay? He only needs 3 more sacks this year to have the all-time Raiders single season mark. And I looking at his schedule, I think he's going to get it. He's got the Chiefs coming up who give up pressures. He's got the Colts. And then there's a week 18 against the Broncos. The Broncos are an easy matchup to beat as well. So, yeah, I think he'll get it.
And I kind of like Crosby, too, this week, even against the Chargers, because there's going to be no quarterback who just went on IR.
Herbert's out, and then you got
Herbert's out, so they got Easton Stick in there.
Yep.
Keenan Allen is going to be banged up and questionable even to play. So I think they're going to do a lot of like trying to negate how much they're going to put on Stick, and I just think that they're just going to be in a pin their ears back kind of mode. Like, hey, if you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us throwing the ball. And Crosby's just going to, I think, feast on Thursday night. So,
and it's dangerous with Crosby. 97% snap count last week, 10 tackles, 2 sacks against the Vikings.
And that was on a bad knee.
Yeah. Number 3, and the only reason I got him a little bit further down, TJ Watt. You know what I'm looking at right now? His biggest enemy is that little red Q next to his name. Okay. None of that matters. He's got solo tackles, 29. That's tied for 15th. He's got 8, which is tied for 38th as far as assists. Sacks, he's got 15, which is tied for second. Forced fumbles, 3, tied for 5th. But again, to me, none of that matters. That red Q matters. This is a must-win game for the Steelers. They have to have this, right? They lost to the Patriots. And you know what else they lost? They lost Watt, like the first snap of the game, I think, right? He went down. Watt got dinged up with a concussion. I've been kind of watching this one, Jeff. Last night-ish, he was on a limited practice, which is encouraging. So he should, if he plays, he's a top-tier option any given week. Just be mindful of that as the week progresses, but I think he'll play.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Like if he's there, he's in your lineup. There's no, you're probably not deep enough where you have to make a decision between starting one of these top 7 or 8 guys. If you do, you're an amazing drafter, or your league is terrible at trading. So,
yeah, no kidding, right? So for my number 4, I put Micah Parsons there. And there's a couple reasons. I was thinking about this prior to you coming on the show. With Parsons, right? He's got a matchup against the Bills. That's another game the Bills need. But for this particular matchup, it's my belief that Josh Allen's is going to have to account. He's going to have to adjust the pass protection because this is a big test for him. That's a big test for the whole offensive line. Whether or not they move Parsons around, that's what they do. They move him all around the field. Okay. So who do we got? Who do we got pass blocking for the Bills? You got Deion Dawkins, who's got a 77.8 grade. You got Spencer Brown, who's got a 66.7 grade per PFF. I mean, outside of Crosby week 2, the Bills really haven't had any really tests as far as testing the offensive line. So this could be their greatest test. This could be the greatest test they've seen so far.
No, yeah, I like you said, it's a must-win game, and I think this is one of those games where both offenses are going to be really efficient. So there's going to be a high volume of plays for both defenses, and as you know, Steve, like volume is king. You can't score points if you're not on the field, and I just think that both teams are very quick scoring teams, and so I just think that both teams are going to have a chance to play, and they're going to have to score points. And if you have to score points, you have to throw the ball, and that just gives Parsons an opportunity too. And like you said, they move all around. They move on the interior of the line, so he's matched up against guards. They've got a bunch of like the swing plays where they do the traps and everything like that. They just use him in a very great way. Like Dan Quinn does an amazing job with all those pieces that he has. So
oh my God, does he? And it's so neat. I did an episode a while back. I was trying to like dissect how they actually bring all their guys in. It's an amazing job. Well done. So for 5, I'm actually excited about number 5 here, which is Daniel Hunter. There's not a lot that needs to be said that hasn't been said on Hunter. But as a rundown, he's got 14 sacks in the season, tied for 4th. He's got 38 solos, tied for 3rd. And he's got 4 forced fumbles. So he gets a lot of those, right? He knocks the ball out. He's second in his position, okay? What makes Daniel Hunter actually respectable as well is the high tackle rate and actually tackle for loss. But I've been thinking about this one too, Jeff. He's got a matchup against the Bengals this week, okay? The Bengals just got Joe Burrow smashed, okay? And not only that, they're historically bad on the O-line, okay? This we know. They got a bad reputation now. So, you know, what I did for the audience on Spotify, I can't see, I kind of pulled up the Bengals depth chart. So let's roll out the red carpet here. The offensive line blocking is horrible. They got a guy named Cordell Volson, whose pass block grade is 38.1. They got a guy named Alex Kappa, 62.0. Orlando Brown, 62.8. Jonah Wilson, 62.0. So just thinking about that and thinking about how serious of a player Hunter is, he's going to eat this week. You know what? You might as well call the police, call the paramedics, because he's going to murder somebody.
Yeah, he and DJ Woonem are just like a great pair. Like Woonem, like you talked earlier about like snaps here, that guy's in the 95 percentile each week for percent of plays that that's insane for a defensive lineman. But like you said, these Bengals offensive linemen are just a brutal. Horrible. There was a meme a couple years ago when they drafted Chase Young. I'm sure you saw it where they Joe Burrow to Chase Young or Jamar Chase and he's getting sacked. And then if the Bengals drafted Sewell, it would be to anybody and he was completing the pass or something like that. And it wasn't wrong, look where we are right now. We got Burrow on the sideline and not playing and in a sling. So, but I'm sure they
Yeah.
don't regret drafting Jamar Chase though. So
Not at all. Not at all. But yeah, I do remember that. Oh my God, that was so fun. You took me back a little bit. That was a good one. Number 6, I got Nick Bosa. And number 7, I got Josh Allen. And I'm going to sort of pair them up together. I guess you could say this is the end of the tier of the high studs, but I got them a little bit down. Now, at first glance, Jeff, you're going to look at this, you're going to think, oh, these are sweet matchups, but I want to be hesitant a little bit. Nick Bosa versus the Cardinals, Josh Allen against the Ravens. Cool, right? Let's break this down. Nick Bosa is playing the Cardinals. The funny thing about divisional matchups, rivalry games, what have you, you can go back and look at the second game. The first game in the season, I believe that was in week 4. Okay, he only got 1 tackle. Now, this was before Chase Young and everything, but I'm just saying, for some reason, the Cardinals did block Bosa. Bosa gets a lot of pressures and whatnot. Just be mindful of the matchup. It's not a slam dunk. When you think Cardinals, a lot of times you think it is, but it isn't always a slam dunk. And I only got him down at 6. I mean, otherwise, I'd usually have him 4 or 5.
Yeah, the one thing about that matchup earlier in the season.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. The one thing about that matchup earlier in the season, Kyle Murray wasn't the quarterback either. So, I mean, it's like their first time playing this time around. So it's a very different game when Kyle Murray's back there QBing than it is like what was it, Clayton Tune, or maybe it was Dobbs. Was it Josh Dobbs was the quarterback then?
I want to say it was
traded
Dobbs.
to Minnesota.
Don't quote me. I think it was Dobbs at that point. For 7, Josh Allen, okay? Same thoughts, same thought process with Josh Allen as I have with Bosa, okay? He's a higher pedigree player, but it's perceived to be a better match with the Ravens. The only reason I'm kind of a little bit hesitant, I got Josh Allen at 7. I can see the Ravens running the hell out of the ball. I can see them running it down their throat because they're only the 18th best rush defense. So it might be easier to run at them than pass at them. So that would kind of put Josh Allen at bay. So 6 and 7, they feel about right to me, but I'm just a little bit hesitant. That's why I'm a little bit lower.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I mean, and you're really splitting hairs with all of these. Like you said, these are all elite studs. You're not questioning you're going to sit them or anything. And, it's sometimes important to think like these tiers aren't just like, they're in a ranking 1 through 7, but that doesn't mean that like they're not all elite options. You got this huge tier. Whenever I think of like numbering guys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like Ruxin from the league always pops into my head because he was always so driven by the ranking or the number of the tiers or like where they're at. But some of these tiers are, 7, 8 guys deep, and they're still very quality options. It's not like, oh, he's the 7th guy. He could legit be 1 through 7 in those.
I'd
in
be
those
grateful
tiers,
for any one of these guys. Number 8, actually, the next 2 or 3, I actually really like these matchups, just to size them up. Number 8 is Hassan Riddick. Okay, he's playing the Seahawks. The Seahawks, namely with Geno Smith at quarterback, they had a noticeable tendency to hold on to football way too long. Well, put Drew Lock in there now. He does the same darn thing. Okay, so this could be a positive game script for a Philly pass rush. With Riddick leads the team with 11 sacks and 11 tackles for a loss on 31 tackles. He doesn't do much on tackles, but he gets free on sacks. So if anyone out there, I think my money's on him to get to the quarterback. So I got Riddick at 8.
No, I agree. He's been playing much better as of late too. He started the season off a little cold, but he's really picked it up over the last few weeks. So he's kind of an ascending player, and at the right time when the Eagles need to get a win too. So,
oh yeah, must win. That's right. That's a good point. My next player, Justin Matabuke, and this may be a little high for him, but can we all just take a moment, like we're at church? Can we take a moment of silence for Justin Matabuke? I mean, for real, 11 sacks as a defensive tackle. Look at these stats. Look at these stats on the screen. Every single week, this guy brings his lunch pail to work. Every single week, he is killing it.
Yeah, he's in it, almost into that contract year discussion. So, he's going to be playing his best football. He's got, like you said, he's got a sack all the way back since week 4. And it's just an unbelievable streak. And then you look at that, if you're not on Spotify, you're looking at that far left-hand column with the points, double digits every single week. Like that's unheard of, consistency for a defensive edge. Like there's very few guys. Bosa doesn't even do double-digit points every single week. There's such a spike in a valley for all these players, but he's been the model of consistency at that position. So,
oh my God, has he? What kills me, Jeff? On a 32-team league that I'm in, I had him last year. And in the offseason, I think I cut him or traded him. But who knew? Who knew, you know? But, it kills me what could have been.
Hindsight's 2020.
Always. Gotta have that roster spot. All right, number 10, we got Khalil Mack. Okay, now same thoughts as I said earlier, right? He's got a divisional matchup this week against the Raiders, right? You know what's beautiful about those two games in your division? We can kind of look back. Now, does anybody remember what happened the last time Mack got the Raiders? I do. Anybody remember? He's on the screen. He had a huge game, did he not?
Yeah, I'm sure Garoppolo remembers that game pretty well. So.
Oh my God, yeah. So Mack on the year, 28 tackles, he's tied for 18th, assists 10, tied for 22nd in his position, 16 sacks, that's first. Forced fumbles 6, that's first too. And here's the thing, he'll get you either way. He'll get you on the tackles or he'll get you on the sacks. But I want to say, let me look back at that Raiders game. What did he have? Like six sacks that game? Something ridiculous. And he had 2 forced fumbles. I mean, give me a break. They don't got anybody there that can block him either. That's the scary part about this. I don't know what they're going to do this week. I know they're going to be mindful of him, but I just don't know how they're going to stop it.
What's really interesting, too, is he got better after Bosa was injured. Like, he became more of a consistent player. So you would think that would be the opposite, where teams could, okay, I'm going to send a tight end to that side. We're going to chip. We're going to do everything we can. But he's actually gotten more multi-sack games after Bosa was injured than before. So, which is kind of contradictory to what you would think. So,
just to recap, guys, I got 1, Myles Garrett. Number 2, I got Crosby. Number 3, I got Watt. 4, I got Parsons. 5, I got Hunter. 6, I got Bosa. 7, I got Josh Allen. 8, I got Hassan Reddick. 9, I got Matabuke. 10, I got Mack. 11, I got DeForest Buckner. Now, moving on to this final tier, I'm looking at matchups. I'm trying to be mindful of these matchups from 12 to 15. 12, I got Aiden Hutchinson. 13, I got Aaron Donald. 14, I got Bradley Chubb. 15, I got Carl Granderson. Let me just give some talking points on some of these guys, okay? All right, when I'm looking at Hutch, I guess you can consider this a fade to me. Hutch has been up and down, but Hutch got a game against the Broncos, and they're the 4th best at defensive end, so he can hit. When I look at 13, I see Donald, and he's got the Washington Redskins pass defense. You know that's been hard. What'd you say, Sack Howell earlier?
Sack Howell, yep.
The only reason I have him lower than most people would think, the only reason I did that, Jeff, if you look at Aaron Donald the last couple weeks, he's kind of simmered down a bit. I don't know if it's old age or maybe they're just whatever, but he's not getting the numbers as Aaron Donald as we know. I think he has a good matchup, but I don't think he's top tier.
Yeah, I like Kobe Turner, who's playing next to him. You know, like he's a great play. He's been amazing as a rookie. They started him week 1 and he got a sack in his first game and he hasn't come off the field much either. He's been a heavily used player. And I think playing next to Donald has been an asset for him. Or like anyone looks better when they're next to Aaron Donald. Donald's taking on double and triple teams at times. And then Turner has like a really good win rate. And so he's winning his matchups on the one-on-one. So he's getting home to those sacks, whereas Donald's probably being more impactful in real football, but you know, we're not playing a real football game. We're playing a fake game off of sports. So.
Right. And my last 2, I'm going to do them together as well. Bradley Chubb against the Jets. He's got 2nd best defensive end matchup. And then we got Granderson versus the Giants. That's number 1 best defensive end matchup. So either one of these guys is going to go off for you. That's my top 15. For those that are on YouTube, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my screen and I'm going to show you my list of rankings. Jeff, any thoughts on this ranking list?
No, I really like it. I mean, it's hard to argue anybody moving up, moving down. I really like the Granderson call. He's had a great season for the Saints all year. He's not just a high tackle floor, but just sacks as well. And so he's been a very outstanding player. I was trying to see where did you have Jonathan Grenard this week? He's one of my favorites. This down at 20. Yeah, so he's DL2. He's a DL2. Yep,
So my bubble players, I got Montez Sweat, Sam Hubbard, Brian Burns. I don't know about Brian Burns. He may be hurt. So that's what stinks about doing these things so early. Landry, Hayward, Thibodeau. But then I got right under that, I got Greener, and he's always crushing it.
I'm just a little Green Bay Packer biased, but where was Rashawn Gary on that one? So,
he hurt my feelings last week.
Yes, he hurt mine too. Getting a loss as a team, that's not very good. So,
yeah, I got him 27 right after Wilkins, Henderson, all those guys right there. So, the thing about Gary is he's got the Bucks, man. That's such a thin. I mean, they're good on tackle, I think, but they're really thin in interior. So that's another guy on the bubble. And honestly, I'm probably going to tinker with this list. I'm probably going to move guys up as well. You know how it goes.
Yep, especially when guys get not going to be able to go and they get off the list and move down. So that's and like in many leagues, and I'm sure you play in them too, you're not just starting one defensive lineman. You probably are starting 2 or 3, and depending on scoring, you might flex even a defensive lineman based on that. So, all of those guys are legit, you're getting them out there. So,
what's funny? I was talking to the IDP tipster. I had him on the other day. We're talking about how nickel and dime have kind of changed the old 4-3, 3-4 thinking. Linebacker 100% guys are rarer ever. They're like gold, like in leagues, right?
Yep.
These extra safeties coming down, all that stuff is changing the game. But not just that, what you just kind of said, from defensive lineman 30 to like 60, you sort of cut those guys and rotate them out every other week. Yep. They're a dime a dozen now too. It used to be when I first started playing, defensive linemen were volatile and are harder to find. You get an elite guy, kind of like a tight end. No, it's actually growing. It's growing and changing as we go. So kind of neat to see.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, like too, with the 3 safeties on the field, I think that's just the evolution of real football too, because these tight ends are becoming more athletic, they're faster, they're not just inline blockers anymore, and so the typical prototypical linebackers can't hang with them, so they're going to have to bring these like long rangey safeties to cover them, and I think that's just the product of, or I guess it would be a byproduct of the real football, how it impacts fantasy. So.
My first guy on my list this week for defensive backs is Antoine Winfield. He's got a new role this year. I mean, he's no longer playing that slot corner. He's playing the right middle center of the field. And his outline's pretty darn good. He's got 4 forced fumbles on the year. That's new highs. So when you look at his stats, and for those that are on Spotify, I just pulled up his stats the last couple games. Look at that. Holy smokes. He is doing up. Not only is he getting 100%, 99 snaps the last forever, he got 8 tackles last week, a sack, a forced fumble. The week before, he got an interception and another sack. What more do you want out of this guy? So I got him one. I got him one moving forward until somebody tells me otherwise.
I totally agree, especially with the mess that they have at the linebacker position. I mean, Devin White's out for several weeks. Levante David was out. That 1 week he had like 16 tackles. They were legit down to a guy that was on the practice squad on Monday, and they brought him in on Friday as a starter. Like JJ Russell, I think is. So I mean, like it was legit. He was the last man standing for him. So
they gave him the green dot and everything. Imagine that coming to work. Hey, here's green dot.
Yep.
Number 2, I got Derwin James. Now, full disclosure, he's having a slump year. A lot of people don't realize it, but it's Derwin James. I mean, how can you not play this guy? But Derwin James has gave up, it's a career high, 390 receiving yards this year. But for me, he's always tier 1, just for the potential, what he can do in tackles and pass coverage, interceptions, and whatnot. There's only a handful of players. Honestly, those are my top 3, usually Winfield, James, and Kroll in some kind of order. But, with James, this week he gets that rookie quarterback matchup with the Raiders, and the guy is prone to make a mistake.
Yeah, the game script thing is the only thing I'm fearful of with James, because the Chargers aren't going to have Herbert back there. They're going to be maybe without Keenan Allen, so their offense is going to be super vanilla. We just saw the Raiders in a 3-0 game versus the Vikings. Like, this could be a really ugly Thursday night game too, and that negative game script where their offenses aren't moving the ball, that would be the only knock on James. But like you said, he's one of those elite guys. You just set it and kind of forget it. You can't really bench him.
Here's something too. My number 3 is Cameron Curl. Here's something when you're doing like big 3 scoring. I guess you guys do that a lot over there. He doesn't really make the list. What is he? Top 10, top 15? But over here in tackle,
right? He's 14 right now.
Yeah. In these leagues, he was number one a lot of weeks over here. In these leagues, he's a top heavy guy. And it's because of those 74 solo tackles he has on the year that puts him, he's tied for third. And also, he's been targeted 43 times. That's tied for eighth. Receptions allowed, he's tied for eighth. But this is a classic example of know your scoring settings, guys, because a guy can be high here and low somewhere else, you know?
Yep. The other thing, too, that with Curl is Jamie Davis went on IR this week, so they lost a linebacker. That'll bring Cody Barton back into the starting lineup. I'm sorry, Cody Barton was already in. David Mayo back into the starting lineup. So they kind of lose, and Mayo comes off the field in passing situations, and Cameron Curl kind of slides into that more of a traditional linebacker role. And so the weeks when Cody Barton was out, we saw a lot better spike weeks out of Cameron Curl. So I'm hopeful, because I have a lot of shares of Cameron Curl, that he's going to kind of bounce back a little here with some more opportunities in the big play game, not only just getting tackles, but, you know, on those third down plays, maybe a pick or a pass defense. So
I love Cameron Curl just because I know I can gauge a snap, I can gauge a tackle. You know, I love players like that. And that's my tier 2. And feel free to, you know, if there's any guys that you want to profile, I'm not going to go over them all. But, you know, defensive back is a dart throw. But here's my tier 2, guys. You already know Winfield's 1, James is 2, Curl is 3. Number 4, I have Jesse Bates. Number 5, I have Jaquan Brisker. Number 6, I got Minka Fitzpatrick. Number 7, I got Reed Blankenship. Number 8, I got Kevin Byard. Number 9, I got Cameron Bynum. Number 10, I got Kyle Duger. Number 11, I got Xavier McKinney. Number 12, I got Buda Baker. Any one of those guys can come out of order. Every single one does the same thing, which is a 3-down safety, tackle heavy, except for Bates. Bates at 4. The reason he's getting so much love is all those darn forced fumbles, tackle, interceptions, big plays he gets. But other than that, any one of those guys is dealer's choice. It's so volatile.
Yeah, I would even kind of maybe root Brisker up into that tier 1 conversation, kind of going forward. Like, he had a great game. They've been taking Sanborn off the field a lot more, and they've been using him more as like that third linebacker, just because he's built, you know, like he's a thick dude, and he has been playing more in the box than those inline snaps. And so, like last week, I think he had a 40-point game. Like, he had just a monster game, you know. And this week he gets Cleveland, so another run-heavy team. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for Brisker to have like back-to-back solid weeks. The one guy I'm a little leery of is Reed Blankenship, just because he got concussed and kind of came off the field. So, and he plays Monday night, so that makes it a little dicey, you know, unless you have like a Sidney Brown on your bench, like you can kind of pivot to him if you get a late scratch in the game. So
I'm holding my breath with Blankenship, and then also Fitzpatrick. I'm waiting for Minka to pop off. We haven't quite seen it yet, but those are the two I'm kind of thinking about. You know, when I get to this bottom tier, Jeff, the 13, 14, 15, I'm looking for upside. I'm looking for hope. Cornerbacks pop up to me. Number 13, I got Nate Hobbs. You know, 97% snaps. Last week, he's generally in the mix for 48 tackles. You know, 4 to 8 each week. You know, I guess 4 being the floor, 8 being the ceiling. But that's not bad. Plus the potential of a big play. But he's going up against whatever deep pattern wide receiver, go pattern, fade receiver the Chargers throw at him. The reason I am a little bit lower, and the only thing I'm a little cautious of is, as you said earlier, you alluded to it, Herbert's not there. So it's going to be Stick trying to make those plays, but still Hobbs is an option here.
I really like Hobbs. He plays a lot of like that slot corner role too. When he's not covering deep, he's in a slot corner position a lot. So he's near the line of scrimmage. So he's, you know, if this is a game script where they're getting the ball out quick, a lot of Austin Eckler passes, like Hobbs is going to have an opportunity to kind of rack up some tackles and things like that. So, you know, like you said, like it's leery that he's not going to go up against a top tier quarterback this week, but you know, that might be game script too. Like they're going to try to do everything they can to keep Stick, you know, not expose him, you know, like, hey, we don't have Keenan Allen this week. It's going to be a lot of stuff to Eckler. It's going to be a lot of stuff to the tight end. So it's going to be a lot of quick hitting kind of things, and right near the line of scrimmage. And hey, guess who's right near the line of scrimmage playing a lot of box snaps? Oh, Nate Hobbs.
You know, the beautiful thing about a safety, he can help in run support and he can help in pass coverage. You don't really see that too much of linebackers. Mostly, well, Logan Wilson does, but other than him, you know, mostly they're tackle around the line of scrimmage. We were talking about this a couple of weeks ago with these hybrid players. It's just so much easier to bring a safety down, make him tackle centric, put on some weight. than to try to train a linebacker to make all those moves and run around, you know? But for me, for this kind of format, I'm looking for solo tackles. I'm looking for guys 90 to 100%, you know, a week. So that's kind of like my formula with this right here, at least for safety. It's so hard to go with. And once I get down here, like I said, I am looking at corners. And here's another one for you. I got Kenny Moore of the Colts. Just tapping my brakes just a little bit. It is the Steelers. Okay. He's playing the Steelers. The Steelers are 28th against passing. And then worse than that, not only are they 28th in passing, they're 24th when it comes to targeting a wide receiver. So there's not a lot
with Trubisky. Now they got Trubisky.
Yeah, true. And there's not a lot to go around, but, you know, Moore is still relevant because I think, you know, he's going to get one or two plays off Trubisky. I mean, he's 100% guy, automatic start, 100% snaps. He's in somebody's top 15. I'm putting him at 14 just because I'm mindful of cornerback.
No, I agree. Like, he's one of those guys that like always figures out a way to get it done. If there's another defensive back I would kind of rival with him, it would probably be Deron Bland of the Cowboys. You know, he's been lights out this season, not only getting the interception return for a touchdown record, but he's been really racking up tackles the last 3 weeks. He has 21 tackles, 2 picks, and 2 pass defenses. So going up against Buffalo, I think that, like we've already mentioned, like that game should be a heavy passing game, and that plays right into, you know, him getting an opportunity to be a high performing player this week.
I'm very excited about that. For my 15th defensive back, I have Dax Hill. He's going against the Vikings. Dax Hill, they move him around everywhere around the field, but he's going against whatever quarterback the Vikings want to roll out there. Yes, please. I'll take that. I think it's going to be Nick Mullins. That's the talk right now. But not only that, the Vikings are I think they're number 6 seed right now. They have a great chance to make the playoffs. So I imagine they're not going to leave much on the field. They're going to be pulling all kinds of tricks out, whatever they want to do. But I believe it's going to be Nick Mullins. And I believe that, they're going to have to stay in this game because I don't think the Colts are going to lay down. I don't know the Colts playoff chances. I'm going to have to look that up. But I don't see them laying down for the Vikings one bit.
No, I don't think any, like there's a lot of narratives about like how teams like, oh, they're in tank mode and stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
No player wants to tank. No player wants to give the team a better draft pick because that player they draft might be coming for their job. And so, you know, you hear all the time about these players have egos and stuff like that. Well, there's a reason they're alphas. They're not going to let someone come and take their job. And so the narrative about tanking, I think it's kind of overplayed and overdone. No player, no coaching staff wants to tank. You know, we see it all the time. Like those week 17s, like Houston last week of the season, just lose the game. And then you got the number 1 pick. But what did they do? They went out and won the game and lost the number 1 pick. And, you know, it's just kind of like, so that idea to tanking to me just seems kind of more of a fan thing than it is an actual football thing.
Yeah, right. And so I'm going to recap the list real quick here for the audience that can see my screen. And for the audience in Spotify, I'll just list it. Number 1 is Winfield. Number 2 is James. Number 3 is Curl. Tier 2, we got number 4, we got Bates. Number 5, we got Brisker. 6, I got Minka Fitzpatrick. 7, I got Reed Blankenship. 8, I got Kevin Byard. 9, I got Bynum. 10, I got Duggar. 11, I got McKinney. 12, I got Buda Baker. 13, I got Hobbs. 14, I got Kenny Moore. 15, I got Dax Hill. And on my bubble, there's a long list of guys. Jalen Petrie at 16. Metellus 17. As we already know, Delpit's hitting IR, so skip him. We got Jonathan Owens. He's coming off as well because where's he been lately? Julian Blackman, Jalen Thomas, and Paulson Adebo. But here's the whole list, guys. Here's the whole list. And like, again, it's so hard, especially with this position, to kind of nail it down on a Wednesday, you know? So keep in mind, some of these guys are going to move up on my list. Jeff, is there anybody you like more than others? Is there anybody you can see moving up during the week? What are your thoughts?
I really like Jordan Whitehead this week. Safety for the Jets. They're going up against Miami. You know, we already talked about that, like divisional narrative game and stuff like that. Miami is just, I feel like they're going to come out this week with something to prove, especially dropping one on Monday night to Tennessee. Again, not knowing the health of Tyreek Hill's ankle and stuff like that, but I can just see them, you know, passing quite a bit, coming out wanting to get a win. And so that puts Whitehead right in a really good position. And if you're going to roll him out as a safety 3 or a 4, like I think he's going to do very well for you in that role. So
yeah, anytime you have a DB3 that you pick up and he gets DB2 value, you win. You win. I'm going to take you guys over to the IDP guys tools here. One of the tools we have, if you go onto the site, you're going to see by position. And what I did is I kind of pulled the best linebacker, best options, by position. The Browns give it up to linebacker this year, followed by the Commanders, followed by the Falcons, followed by the Bears, the Texans, 49ers, Colts, Chiefs, Lions, Giants, all around are just terrible. And then you got the Cardinals. So those are some sweet matchups for your linebackers this week. Let's get to the linebackers while we're here. Okay. Let's just do this in tiers like we did the last one. The first one, I got Foyce Olakun. And then 2, I got TJ Edwards. 3, I got Roquan Smith. 4, I got Zaire Franklin. If you're tuning into week 15 rankings and you don't know those guys, I can't help you. I mean, every week they're in somebody's in some sort of order. But yeah, I can't help you if you don't know those guys by now. They're in everybody's top 4 one way or another. Don't really have too much to say there. Ernest Jones, okay, pretty easy player to comment on. He's actually got a matchup against the Commanders. Okay, he's got pretty healthy. He got a dozen tackles. Sweet matchup. Jones the last 2 weeks. Okay, week 14 versus the Browns, 97% of snap count, 15 tackles. Week against the Ravens, 99% snap count, 10 tackles and a sack. Ernest Jones is right there. He's got the best matchup you could think of this week. So sign me up for some Ernest Jones.
Yeah, I totally agree. He and the Rams are playing a weird one linebacker scheme right now, where Christian Rozeboom comes off the field sometimes, but Ernest Jones is like literally like a little dot in the middle of their defense for not only wearing the green dot, but like literally in the middle of their defensive unit. And he's their only linebacker sometimes. So yeah, he's so much opportunity and volume.
Linebacker is 100% volume game. If you got a guy that's getting that one linebacker role, then more power to him. Number 5 is Bobby Wagner. I kind of told on myself earlier. I was thinking about Bobby Wagner. Man, that guy, I'll tell you, he's got a 90.8 run grade. Okay, he profiles really well. The problem with Bobby Wagner is he's a bit older. Okay, he's a spotty player, meaning some weeks he'll have 17 tackles, and then some weeks he'll have 4 or 5. So that's your ceiling, 4 or 5 as your floor, and then your ceiling 17. So you got to take what you get with Wagner. But golly, for a guy his age, if that's the floor and that's whatever, and he's not that great in pass coverage, but guess what? I can care less. I can care less. He PFF grades at 59.6. I can care less. Sign me up for some Bobby Wagner. Sign me up for 100% snap count. Sign me up for those tackles.
And I think he gets a nice matchup versus the Eagles this week too. Like I feel that the Eagles are going to come out this week and try to reestablish their culture. They've a couple weeks they tried to pass too much, and they've had 2 losses because of it. They were winning when they were running, and that bodes very, very well for their game scheme because it keeps Seattle's offense off the field, and it gives Bobby Wagner just a ton of opportunity to rack up tackles. So sign me up, like you said.
You made me think of, did you see that? I think it's a meme too. The guys are standing outside the Eagles Stadium with the sign, "Run the ball." The coach came out and gave him a cup of coffee.
Give him coffee, yeah. Yep.
That's Philadelphia for you. Okay, here you go. Run your mouth through some coffee.
Yep.
So moving on here, I'm kind of excited about these next couple players. Number 7, I got Alex Singleton, okay? I kind of did this a couple weeks ago, so let me just show you, and I tweeted this, okay? With Alex Singleton, not only are you getting 100 every week, you're getting a tackle. Okay, whether or not he's a great player in real life, it remains to be seen. We don't care about all that. But here's the tweet. Alex Singleton, he's had double-digit tackles 9 of the last 10 weeks. Well, add a couple more to it. He's got double-digit tackles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 10 out of 11 weeks. Okay. Not only that, he's broke the team's double-digit record set in 1987. It was only 5. So this guy's like on a rampage. Highest graded linebacker they have, PFF. It's kind of one-trick pony, though, but that's all I want out of him. I want this right here. And every single week he's getting up points. This may be a low ranking. This may be a low ranking, but at 7 playing Detroit, Detroit, I'm not going to say they run the ball well, but some games they do. They want to be a team that runs the ball and pounds it. So Detroit's a decent matchup for him.
Very much so. Yep. Yeah, and but like you said too, like you got him at 7, but there really isn't. I mean, if you have Singleton, you're not benching him. Nobody's going to have the 6 linebackers ahead of him to like have to decision like, oh, what am I going to do? Do I have to start Singleton this week? Of course you are. He's a one of those set it and forget it type players. So
I don't know if you remember when I was talking about Josh Allen. I really suspect the Ravens are going to pound the ball because that's what they do. Okay, let's enter the next guy on the list, Devin Lloyd. Devin Lloyd's got 11 tackles and a forced fumble last week. He's got Baltimore. Okay, very few people had Lloyd, and I can't figure it out because even beginning of season, we're like, where was this guy at? Remember they had Chad Muma in there. I don't know. I guess he got hurt. I don't know the situation. But if you look at since week 7, he's been consistently good. So much so people in my audience, my YouTube channel, like, hey, where's Devin Lloyd? Where's Devin Lloyd? I go, we need to see it. We need to see it more often. But dear Lord, give it any given week, 100%, 98%, 100%, 90%, 100%, 10 tackles, 11 tackles, 8 tackles, 11 tackles, 11 tackles. And he gets you a little bit on forced fumbles too. So Devin Lloyd with the Ravens, that's another sweet matchup. I'd love to move him and Singleton up. But as you said, where do you move him? You can't take any of those guys down.
Yeah, they drafted him last year in the first round, and they drafted Muma later in the 3rd out of Wyoming. And it was kind of like, oh, they just killed both of their values, because Foye Oluokan's already there. They gave him a big contract. Clearly, he's not coming off the field. But Devin Lloyd has quietly over the last couple of weeks have had super, super consistent games. And they benched him last year towards the end of last season. They got him back on the field. And I don't know if that's like just the coach waits to motivate him, but he's really come out like a gangbuster this year. And he kind of got dinged up in week 3. And then that's when we saw Mubin coming back. And then there was like rumblings about, oh, here we go again. It's going to be the same thing. But Devin Lloyd came back. And like you said, he's just been crushing. He's got double-digit tackles in almost every single week since then. And he's been giving Foye Oluokan kind of a run for his money. Usually we don't see teams with 2 top linebacking options. The Bears have it with Roquan Smith and Tremaine Edmonds. The Jaguars kind of have that right now with Devin Lloyd and Foye Oluokan too. So it's just kind of a rarity to have 2 teams with, 2 top 10 guys.
My 9 and 10, number 9, I got Logan Wilson. Number 10, I got Bobby. Okay. So with those guys, I kind of do them together. They're usually in my 9 and 10 range because they do the same kind of thing for me. 100% get the tackles. I guess Wilson's a little bit better in pass coverage, but Logan Wilson versus the Vikings, Bobby versus the Saints. Both of those guys are relevant each week, but I just got them slightly below everybody else.
Well, like you said, you can't justify moving someone down. Bobby Okereke has had a really good season for the Giants. He's been kind of splitting shares with Micah McFadden a little bit, or like Micah McFadden's been playing a little bit more, but it still hasn't taken Okereke off the field or kind of hurt his numbers at all. So
now my next guy, because when I'm moving all these guys up and I'm all excited, I had to bring somebody down. So I chose CJ Mosley, and I don't know if I'm ahead on this or not. But when you guys look at CJ Mosley, put some caution to the wind. I got him at LB11. I know most people have him up high. But if you look at the last couple of games, he's been slowing down quite a bit. I mean, even though he's logging a ton of snaps, he's not the CJ Mosley we used to know. And this thing sort of happens to older players as the season goes by, as the weather gets colder. These guys, they need a little bit of a breath. But I don't really see good numbers considering the guy's 100% guy,
And not only that, like the motivation, like that, the expectations for the Jets this year were like they were playoff bound, and 5 plays into the season, Rodgers is on the field needing to get carted off with an Achilles, and they, Mosley's been playing really consistent, like you said, with age, but then it might be just like, the season is just not going how it's going, how we need it to go. And, he's a professional. He's not going to like roll over on the team, but there has to be something to that, like that motivation factor. Like, we're just, here we go again. it's the Zach Wilson show, and we want to get off.
And, once I get down this low, so I guess I am kind of fading him a bit, but snap count and volume are such a big thing. Guys can have 100% snap count, but if you're not getting the volume as well, then it's not a big play for me. I did that in a couple episodes back. I think it was when Matt Milano was in. Yeah, he was a 100% snap count guy, but he's only getting 45 plays. Suppose the Mosley was getting like 80 at the beginning of the year because the Jets defense just deserted them. So maybe he's just tired. Maybe he's just ran out. But snap count volume are a thing to me. And I think that's when I'm doing my rankings. I think that's the secret sauce. I'll lump some of these guys up together like this last year. I'll lump them up IDP production versus, I guess, expected model, like what their projections are going to be. That's kind of what I do. I'm looking at it like, okay, well, this guy gets 100%. This guy's good for 5-6 tackles. This guy's not. So it's guesswork really, but that's kind of what I do as far as I look at IDP production versus an expected production projections, The first guy in this list, I got Fred Warner. I'm looking at solo tackles. He's got 72. That's tied for 18th. That's good. That's great. Assists, 34, tied for 7th. Interceptions, he's first with 4. And forced fumbles, he's got 3. He's second. I'm very excited about him this year as opposed to the dreaded, and I know you've heard this before, the dreaded third-round draft rookie curse. Third-round linebackers tend to bust. And it's crazy with Warner because usually he's the best kept secret in the playoffs. He's mostly the refreshed player because the rest of the defense usually does everything. Greenlaw usually outplays him. This year, we're actually seeing a good Fred Warner. We're actually seeing what he can do, which is neat.
Yeah, and Fred Warner gets a bump this week because Greenlaw is battling like a hip injury right now. So you look at Warner, he might be called on to get a little bit more run than a typical week because he might not have his running mate with him.
So my next guy on the list is Terrell Bernard. Solo tackles, 72. There's another guy right there. Hits my criteria. You got the snaps, you got the tackles. That's tied for 18th. Okay, assists, that's 37. He's got 37. That's tied for 4th position. 3 interceptions, tied for 2nd. Again, he's just right place, right time. I know the Bills had a hard time this year playing musical chairs at that position, but I think they finally got it right with Terrell Bernard.
Yeah, and after they lost Matt Milano in the beginning of the season with that injury too, like he had to really step up. And I know that they were kind of, like you said, it's a great analogy, musical chairs. Anybody that followed the Bills during the preseason, we had no idea who was going to play next to Matt Milano. Was it going to be Bernard? Then they were kind of experimenting with Terrell Dodson. They were kind of rotating back and forth. Even the preseason games, this is the Terrell Dodson game. This is the Terrell Bernard game. And then like 3 days before the preseason ended, they were like, oh, Bernard's our guy. So
yeah, David Kelly, of course. Me and him were chatting offline about this. I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, Dotson was their guy all year until the last preseason game. And I'm like, because we were talking like it's suspect, the tackle floor with this guy, very suspect. And then all of a sudden that first game, poof, there's this Mr. Bernard guy and he's playing. So you just never know. I mean, you don't know if the coaches knew or not, but all of us were in the dark with Bernard. It's just so nice seeing that because usually you see the top 10, top 15 guys every week. It's just so nice seeing another player.
Yeah, and like you said, just new players. Like you look at this next tier of guys. If you would have said in week 3, hey, we're going to decide between Ajish Al-Shahir, Ivan Pace, Robert Spillane, all like you would have been like, but that's the nature of IDP. Like, you really have to stay on it from week to week. It's not just kind of like you can kind of come back to it after a couple weeks because it's such a huge turnover on the defensive side of the ball.
Ain't that the truth? We have an amazing bubble coming up. So number 14 is Aziz Al-Shahir. He's got solo tackles. He's got 83. That's 9th on the season. Another one of these guys, 100%. Assists, 35, tied for 5th. Doesn't really do. He'll be top 15. I got him 14th. What says you?
No, I totally agree. Like he's right in there, like back end LB1. If LB2, he's got some upside. He really is the only linebacker. I know they got Jack Gibbons there too, and he's kind of been a nice story, but he's not playing 100% of snaps. And so Shahir is the one that's staying on the field the entire game. Like he's getting the heavy volume, and volume's king. So
for 15th, I got Nick Bolton. And the only reason I'm doing that, 92% of snaps on 8 tackles. I'm just giving him a couple weeks to get his feel back. Give him a couple weeks to get back to being healthy. It's so nice seeing him on the field. I mean, that was a good warm-up game, but expect more to come. 15th, and he's got the questionable on it. But, if he does play, it's a good matchup with the Patriots who are going to run the ball with Zeke Elliott. So, that's why I put him where I put him. The bubble's amazing, too. You got Ivan Pace, Patrick Queen, Levante David, Kenneth Murray. Any one of those guys can supersede and jump up in there. Just so hard trying to put them in places early in the week.
And like I mentioned, too, like you just have to think about these players in bigger tiers. Even if you have Bolton as 15, that doesn't mean that players 16 through 19 couldn't be the same number. It's kind of think about a more linear, not so much like, up and down kind of columns.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then, I go on the IDP guy snap tool a lot, and I look at these snaps, and not just the current week, but I go back historically. When you look at all of those guys we just mentioned, when you look at Terrell Bernard, when you look at Ernest Jones, when you look at Fred Warner, when you look at them, for those that can't see my screen at home or on Spotify, I just pulled up the IDP guys snap tool. Just gives me a little sight, but it kind of tells on the player, and that's kind of where I get my. I look at I go back a couple games, but I look at trends. Some of these guys, they're spot on week to week, but usually when they have a dip like that, they're probably weighing an injury, and that's why I felt the way I do with Bolton. Generally, he's a 100% guy. 92% is encouraging, but give him a couple weeks just to get a good feel, to get back into the game. I'm going to show that screen one more time, Jeff.
Talk about a team that's going to be motivated to win this week. Kansas City, like they had that game. They literally had the points on the board. And then a weird offside penalty took that win away. We just saw the whole meltdown after the game. But talk about a team that's motivated to come out and to put a number up.
Heck yeah! And for those, just to recap: number 1, I got Olakun. 2, I got Edwards. 3, I got Smith. 4, I got Franklin. 5, I got Ernest Jones. 6, I got Bobby Wagner. 7, I got Alex Singleton. 8, I got Devin Lloyd. 9, I got Logan Wilson. 10, I got Bobby O. 11, I got Mosley. 12, I got Warner. 13, I got Terrell Bernard. 14, I got Aziz. 15, I got Bolton. And then I got a bunch of guys on the bubble. Pace, Queen, David, Murray, and then, Watt, Barton. Don't sleep on Barton either. But that's pretty much my list. Jeff, do you see any alibis in here? Anything?
I love Robert Spillane way more than I should. I see you got him like listed at 27.
Yeah.
Front end, like LB3. He's been crushing it the last like 5-6 weeks. He's legit LB1 material each and every week. I know he gets a kind of a rough matchup this week with the Chargers, but I think we kind of mentioned it earlier too with like Derwin James. Like they're going to have a game script that's going to not expose or put too much on Easton Stick, and I think they're going to do a lot of running, a lot of short passes to Gerald Everett out of the backfield to Eckler, and that just plays so well into Spillane's hand. And they have really no one else at linebacker. I know they've got Devon Diablo, but he's kind of a converted safety. But Spillane has been the guy, and the head coach Anthony Pierce said, "We're going to center this defense around you." And since Pierce has taken over, if you look at the stats that Spillane has had, like he's a legit like top 7 linebacker in the last like 5 or 6 weeks. So
I did an IDP guys article earlier in the week. Spillane is like I think one of 4 Raiders players ever to have 3 sacks and 3 INTs in a season. So he's doing it all for them.
Yeah, and he's like, I hate to use the term like lunch pail guy, but like, dude, that guy is just comes to work and he's earned it, and like he wants it, and just such a culture guy in your locker room. Like everyone loves that guy. So I do too on my starting lineup.
Heck yeah. Jeff, that completes the rankings. A couple questions for you. How long have you been playing IDP now?
I've been playing since 2011 was my first IDP draft. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing how much this game has grown and changed? I was going to ask you, what advice do you have for new owners or even old owners? What are some, things that you wish you would have known that you know now?
Probably one of the biggest things I would have like wanted to tell my younger self when I was drafting is make sure I know the scoring in my formats. I play in multiple leagues with different settings, and just the position eligibility is so key. You look at a guy like Micah Parsons in one league, he's the 1.1 of defensive players, just because the pressures and the sacks. But then in another league I play in, he's listed as a linebacker, and it's not so pressure heavy, or like it's more tackle heavy league. And he's maybe a flex option, starting. So you really have to know your scoring, and, look at the previous year's scoring when you go into a league or you go into a draft, or if you take over an orphan team, look at the previous year's scoring just so you can kind of see and judge how are those players not only compared to other players of that position, but how are they compared to other positions too? You look at Travis Kelce, who is such a cheat code at tight end because he's like 1.5 times the next tight end. Well, on the defensive side, you have players like that too. Micah Parsons in that league could be, a Travis Kelce like player where he's 1.5 times like the next guy, and things like that. The other thing is, I when I first started, I was such a name guy. I would draft the name, and I've learned over the last few years is not to get married to the name of a player, but look more at the production. Like if you look at like a guy like Chase Young, he carries a lot of value just because he's Chase Young. But over the last like 4 or 5 weeks since he's gotten traded to San Francisco, he has a similar stat line to Shelby Harris. Now, if you had a guy as Shelby Harris on your roster and he was performing like he wouldn't be on your roster. You drop him and pick up the next guy. So just kind of not getting stuck with being married to a guy or getting wrapped up in who it is. Like a guy like Chase Young, you could probably trade in your league to somebody else who likes the name of Chase Young, but those are the kind of trades I look for. Like, yeah, I'm going to cash out on this guy now. So.
Oh yeah. And you nailed it on the head, different kinds of scoring, stuff like that. Cause if you don't know the scoring setup you're in some trouble. And they're not all the same.
No.
We talked about Fantasy Pros. What to look for. A lot of us know, and what I talk about on my network, I talk about tackle savvy, tackle heavy, but that's not the only scoring formats out there. There's quite a few different settings. And like Jeff was alluding to, first thing you should be doing is looking at your roster. That's the first thing you should be doing. Second thing you should be doing is looking at what kind of scoring somebody put together. And there's some that are different than others. Jeff, since you brought it up, I'm wondering, let me know if you can see my screen here.
I can see. I got an IDP waiver wire article.
Hold on. Can you see that by chance?
I can.
That's
it's
right
really
there.
Small. Yeah.
You guys have on your network, you have a thing called IDP Madness. And it was awesome this offseason. It was like best ball, all this stuff. And I'm like, IDP Madness. And I'm a tackle heavy guy, so I'm not used to this. But when you look at this, sacks were worth 6. QB hits were 1. A lot of people don't know what that means. Tackles for a loss are 2. When you see that kind of scoring, that's more sack heavy, right?
Yes, very much. And the reason for this scoring is like trying to emulate. And I know, like, if you want to melt Twitter down, put a math problem out there with parentheses in it, or talk about uniform IDP scoring. And there isn't a need for it, to each their own. If you want to play in a tackle heavy league, play in a tackle heavy league, but just know the scoring. And so kind of the story with the big plays here, the big 3 scoring, is a sack in a game is such a huge game changing play. A tackle for a loss is a huge game changing play. Why should a player who pushes a wide receiver out of bounds 15 yards downfield get the same point value for a guy that makes a tackle 5 yards in the backfield on a wide receiver or a running back screen? Like, what play had a bigger impact on the game? Well, clearly that tackle for a loss, because now all of a sudden it's 2nd and 14 versus 1st and 10, 18 yards down the field. So that was kind of the reasoning or the rationale behind it. So like, it's rewarding I guess it's rewarding your fantasy players for what the real player is doing on the field. So
a lot of people don't realize this too. In that kind of format that you guys run over there, the reason the sack is so valuable at 6, we look at a tackle over here like, oh yeah, tackle's the end of every play. Big deal. Sometimes you got players that just get drugged down the field. But when you look at this format, I know it's small to read. I just wanted to do it as an example to piggyback what you said. 6 tackles is 6. Okay. When you get a sack, 6 points a sack. When you get a sack, you also get the quarterback hit too, right? So that's another point. That's 7, right? You get a tackle for loss when you do that. So 7 becomes 9. And then there's a really small category here, sack yards, 0.01. The average sack play is 7.5 yard loss. So just add another point, half point ish, 3/4 on there. So you're looking at a 9-point play every time to the tackle. What's the tackle worth? 2 on here?
Yeah, okay. And then you have that Khalil Mack game. That's a hefty day. You don't have to start anybody else.
Exactly. And just a fun little point to what you just said. Okay. Players change in these formats. If you're in a tackle heavy league, Trey Henderson's not really worth a darn. He's probably top 40, but over here he's top 5, top 10. Or Christian Wilkins, he doesn't always get it, but over here, a tackle league, he does. Well, look at our Fantasy Pro scoring here. Fantasy Pro scoring, you're getting 1.5 a solo. You're only getting 4 points a sack. A couple weeks ago, we did the math. The highest recorded sack season was TJ Watt with 22.5. Okay? Do that by solo tackles. What's that, 50, 55 tackles in a season? So really what this is saying is, hey, that great elite defensive lineman, he's only worthy of a 2-down linebacker, which is kind of crazy as opposed to the other format. Holy smokes, look at this, So you just got to know your format, I guess, first and foremost. Excellent points, Jeff.
And not taking anything away from a guy like Frankie Louvu, but Frankie Louvu a couple seasons ago had like 100 tackle season, but he didn't really do anything in the splash plays or big turnover things. He finished like 40 or 50 points higher than TJ Watt. Now, if you're an NFL fan, who had more of an impact on the game, TJ Watt or Frankie Louvu? Like I think 99 players out of 100 or 99 people out of 100 would probably say TJ Watt is probably a more impactful player, and so that scoring system just lends itself to rewarding those big plays by those big players. So,
yeah, exactly. So commonly there are 3 major scoring systems, which are Fantasy Pros. Fantasy Pros is your tackle. Your big 3, I guess you call it, would be your sack heavy. Now, there's one more format that a lot of us like to mess around with, and it's called IDP 1, 2, 3. And this is usually where I kind of stay. Guys, don't get too twisted when you see scoring formats like this. When you see, I don't know, the guy has 6 sacks here. He's got quarterback hits. He's got interceptions. Basically, all you're trying to do with the 1, 2, 3 is you're trying to baseline 3 different levels. The basic play to the medium play to the higher up play. That's all you're doing. If you see somebody with crazy math, they're just putting in 3 different layers of priorities. That's all it is. A 1, 2, 3 can be just as easy as a 2, 4, 6 or a 3, 6, 9, and so forth and so forth. So basically, Jeff, I guess there's a format, right? How you know what kind of league you're in? You're going to look at sacks to tackle ratio, okay? So you're going to look at how many points do I get per sack, and I'm going to divide it by how many sacks I get. Now, this is where it gets different between analysts. In my opinion, if it's 5 points per sack or more to 1 point to tackle, now you're in a sack heavy league. Some people say it's 4, some people say it's 6. I'm okay with that. I say 5 to 1. How do you do it?
I'm very much on the same. Yeah. Okay. Even like you're getting into that almost like the 4 to 1, like the Fantasy Pros has. If it's 4 to 1, that one player has to make 4 tackles to equal that one play. And if that player who made the sack gets credit for a tackle too, then that becomes a 5-point play for them as well. So, and the thing about it is that if you're comparing that scoring format is good for everybody in your league. It's not like, like one guy gets an advantage over another because everyone's playing under that same umbrella in that same league. So, that is only a debate or an argument between the experts when it's one format to another. So it's
exactly.
more just talking heads than anything else. So
I mean, the only people argue about scoring. You can still do a rankings. You just got to know where you're putting people. If anything, it just prioritizes where I'm going to draft people and how I'm going to do it. But all excellent points, and I'm glad we took the time to kind of go over that and talk about it. For my audience on Spotify, I'm just showing Jeff's work. You guys can find Jeff. You can find him on the IDP Show. He does the IDP waiver wire article. You put that out every Monday night, correct?
Yep.
And you're on the sit and start Sunday, so the grind is real, my friend.
Yeah, I punch in on Sunday, and I might not be done till Tuesday. So
holy cow! And like besides the IDP show or, your Twitter and this, what else you working on? Tell the audience where they can find you.
Well, doing a lot of stuff with the IDP show. We've got the weekly, obviously, the stuff on Sunday with the start and stuff. We have Monday, obviously, the waiver stuff comes out. We've got rankings that come out during the week. We're kind of getting into like the prop betting kind of things and doing some like parlays and things like that, like on Wednesday, Thursday. Johnny the Greek, if you're ever looking for anything with the quarterback or cornerback streaming stuff, he is just amazing. He must have sold his soul to the IDP devil at some point, just because his success rate this season is like 80% plus. Like
that's insane.
It's unworldly. It really is. Yeah.
I cannot believe that. Yeah. We got Johnny the Greek coming on in a couple of weeks. So I'm going to kind of
be a treat. He's awesome.
They did, cause Fantasy Pros, you can break down like how you're doing by position. I'm number 4, as far as defensive lineman goes. I'm number 2 as far as linebackers goes. And I'm number 12 as far as defensive backs. And I'm like, well, crap, if I can just get the defensive backs, they're like dart throws. I get them figured out. Well, Johnny the Greek's coming in. He knows his secondary. And if you ever look at those articles, guys, I'm telling you, it's fabulous. He talks about indoor, outdoor stadiums, if it's raining, what color socks the coach is wearing. It's incredible. I mean, you guys over at your show, hats off to you. You guys do amazing work, amazing content. And I'm so happy you came on today with me to kind of go through those. Kind of went through them pretty fast. We kind of did. Would you come on again?
Absolutely. I will talk football anytime. One of the fun things that we get to do too with the IDP show is we do roster evaluations. So like anybody can just like set up a time and we'll do like a Zoom call with them and we'll kind of go through the rosters. And it's just fun sometimes to get a different perspective on your team. Like, hey, have you ever thought about putting these guys together and packaging up a trade or those kind of things? So that's a fun thing to do in the off season too, especially like, especially in dynasty leagues, you get that April, May, you get the draft and stuff like that. But then it's like, you get kind of those like slow months. So that's a really fun thing to kind of keep things entertaining.
For the audience at home too, we're actually keeping this content going even after the season's over. We're going to be doing dynasty rankings. Dynasty rankings are fun to me, Jeff, because it's all speculative. Like, it's all fantasy. Might as well put a unicorn on it, chase Bigfoot. I mean, it's all for fun. What we think, contracts, that stuff's neat to me. I'm also going to be putting a little bit of rookie spin on it. So feel free to, maybe we can come back on, collaborate, or maybe come on your show, we collaborate. However you want to do it, I would be very, very interested in that. And thank you so much for coming on. Any closing thoughts, Jeff?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to come on, talk football, and thank you for having me.
Excellent, guys. And we're going to close the show off a little early. I just wanted to advertise my work over on Fantasy Six Pack. I too do the waivers article, and then you'll see it. You can't miss it. It has a little keyboard thing that says success on it. And what it is I'm trying to teams that are getting ready to go into playoffs, championship, how to find waivers. I go deep. I try to do for each format, Jeff. I think I got like over 60 players on there. It's ridiculous. It's a whole smorgasbord. You can't go wrong with it. But it's over there on the Six Pack. Guys, check it out. Check out Jeff's work. Definitely check out Johnny the Greek's work. Definitely check out the IDP show. See you guys next week. We're going to have Stephen Wright on the show. He's a former offensive lineman for the Cowboys and the Raiders. And he's a former contestant on Survivor 22. He'll be on Wednesday to kind of just tell us what it's like to be in the NFL as we do our rankings. So anybody else got any questions, leave them in the comments. You know how I am. I'll answer them on the show. See you guys later.
Thank you for watching this IDP Guys video. If you like this content and you want more fantasy football content, click here. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos to help you master your IDP league, click here to subscribe.